6 days. That is all that stands between Arsenal Football Club and the greatest night in their modern history. Not 6 weeks, not 6 months, 6 days. The Premier League trophy has already been lifted. The champagne has already been poured. But inside this football club, nobody is resting. Nobody is finished. Because Mikel Arteta stood in front of a camera this week and said something that every Arsenal supporter needs to hear clearly. He said, we have raised different standards now, and the next level is going to happen in Budapest. William Saliba, the man who has been the best defender in England this season, looked directly into the camera and said, I am not full, I want more. And Bukayo Saka, a player who has fought through physical struggles all season, who has had to dig deeper than most people realise, summed up everything about this moment in 4 words when he was asked about his teammate Declan Rice. He said, he changed our world. That is where Arsenal are right now. Title won. Final ahead. Squad united and a city, a fan base, a football club holding its breath for what comes next. This is the full story and we are starting right now. Jose Mourinho and Mikel Arteta. Let us start with something that stopped a lot of people in their tracks. Jose Mourinho, one of the most decorated and most outspoken managers in the history of football, sat down and spoke about Mikel Arteta. And what he said was not polite small talk. It was a genuine, detailed and somewhat alarming assessment of what Arsenal have built. Mourinho pointed out that Arteta has joined the list of the 3 youngest managers ever to win the Premier League. Think about that for a moment. That is not a footnote. That is history. And then Mourinho went further. He noted that Arteta became the first former Premier League player to win the league as a coach. That is a landmark that nobody can take away from him. But the part that really landed, the part that should make every Arsenal supporter feel something, was when Mourinho said, and I want you to hear this clearly, that Arteta is here to dominate, to conquer, and to become a nightmare for English football. And then he finished with this line. He said, we may not be ready for what is coming. Now, when Jose Mourinho, a man who has won the Premier League, the Champions League, multiple league titles across Europe, when that man looks at a rival club and says, we may not be ready, that is not flattery. That is a warning. That is a man who understands power in football, and he is telling you that Arsenal currently hold it. My analysis here is simple. When your rivals are speaking about you this way, when people who built dynasties at other clubs are now describing your manager as a future nightmare for the sport, you are doing something right. Arteta has clearly moved beyond the phase of proving himself. He is now in the phase of being feared. Arsenal want a top attacker moving forward. It is now clear that Arsenal are not satisfied with what they have built. The club recognises that Mikel Arteta has created something defensively excellent, something structured and disciplined and hard to beat. But the feeling within the club is that they are still missing a certain quality in the final third, a differential quality, the kind of attacker who changes a game on their own. The situation is that Arsenal believe, with more firepower in the attacking line, they could dominate English football for years. And they are pointing specifically to the departure of Pep Guardiola from Manchester City as a window of opportunity. With City in a period of transition, the road ahead for Arsenal is clearer than it has been in decades. This is a very important piece of information. The club is not just celebrating the title. They are already thinking about how to consolidate it, how to build on it, and how to make sure this is not a one-season story. The board wants a top attacker. That conversation is already happening. My analysis. Arsenal identifying an attacking addition while still in the middle of a Champions League final week tells you everything about the ambition and the structure of this football club. This is not a club that wins and rests. This is a club that wins and immediately asks, what is next? Before we go any further, I want to take a moment here, because what you are about to hear in the next section is the full picture of where Arsenal stand. The players are speaking, the manager is speaking, the ownership is speaking. And if you want this level of detail, this depth of analysis consistently, then please hit that subscribe button right now. Every single piece of analysis on this channel is built around giving you the full story, not just the headlines. Subscribe to Melissa Arsenal Analysts. Now, let us continue. Arteta speaks on the Champions League final. Mikel Arteta addressed the media and his words were measured, focused and deeply revealing. He said that Arsenal have raised different standards now. He acknowledged that the Premier League title is won, but he was clear that the next level is what matters. And that next level, in his own words, is going to happen in 6 days in Budapest. He described the energy around the club as incredible. Families connected, people who know each other, a genuine sense of joy and ambition existing side by side. And then he said something that I think defines this Arsenal team perfectly. He said, "We see the joy, but we also see the ambition. We have done that. But now we want this one." He finished by saying that based on their Champions League journey this season, he believes they have every right to be confident, not arrogant, confident. There is a difference. My analysis, Arteta is doing something very difficult here. He is managing the emotional high of a title celebration while simultaneously keeping the group focused on what is still ahead. That is elite management. Most teams that win the league struggle in the final weeks because the job feels done. Arteta is making sure nobody at Arsenal feels that way. The job is not done. William Saliba on winning the Champions League. William Saliba was asked directly about what winning the Champions League would mean to him. His answer was honest, emotional, and completely clear. He said it would mean a lot. He acknowledged that the Premier League title is his first and he is happy. But then he said something that every Arsenal supporter should take note of. He said, "I am not full, I want more." He spoke about the chance next week being huge, and he said the squad has to give absolutely everything. He also addressed Paris Saint Germain direct. He said they were scary last year and they are still scary this year. Nothing has changed. But he also said that if Arsenal want to beat them, they have to be at 100%. And then he said something that gave me pause. He said, "Arsenal have the best defence this season. And when you are the best, you want to play against the best." He said he is happy to face attackers of that quality because it is a test of exactly where Arsenal stand. My analysis. Saliba is a man who has earned the right to speak about standards. He is arguably the best centre-back in the Premier League this season. And when he says he is not satisfied with one title, when he says he wants the Champions League too, that hunger is real. That is not a press conference line. That is a competitor who knows what this moment means. Bukayo Saka on his personal season. Bukayo Saka opened up in a way that felt genuinely vulnerable. He said there is a lot to say about the last few years. He admitted that physically he has not been at his best level, and he said he paid the price with some of his performances. He was honest enough to say he did not need anyone to tell him that. He knew it himself, but then he talked about what kept him going. He said this was a very important year. He had to keep his spirit up, stay faithful, and believe that things would turn around. And they did. He acknowledged it was tough. He said it tested him a lot this year, but at the end, the group stayed together. He pointed out that it was not just him. A lot of players and staff had tough moments too, but they stuck together, and now it feels special. My analysis, what Saka is describing here is the foundation of a winning culture. Not talent alone, not tactical excellence alone, but a group of people who stay connected through difficulty. That is what separates good teams from great ones. And Saka, even in a season where he was not at his physical peak, was still a key part of Arsenal's title win. That tells you everything about his character. Saka on team unity and new arrivals. Saka continued speaking about the group, and he made a specific point that I think is very significant. He said that since he has come into this team, it has been special. He has always felt welcomed. He said the new players who have come in, mentioning Eberechi Eze specifically, have found it easy to fit in too. He described it as a special group, very close. And he said that achieving something as a team with that closeness, with that feeling, makes it feel even more meaningful. My analysis, this matters for the future of the club. One of the biggest challenges any successful team faces is integrating new players without disrupting the culture that made them successful. What Saka is describing is a culture so strong that new arrivals adapt to it naturally. That is incredibly rare. And it suggests that Arsenal can continue to bring in quality players without risking the identity that Arteta has built. Noni Madueke on Arsenal versus Paris Saint Germain. Noni Madueke was asked about facing Paris Saint Germain in the Champions League Final. He acknowledged that PSG are a great attacking side, no doubt in his own words. But then he asked a question that reframes the entire narrative around this final. He said, have Arsenal not scored the most goals in the Champions League this season? And he followed that with a statement that was both confident and grounded. He said Arsenal are one of the best attacking teams as well, and one of the best defensive teams too. My analysis, Madueke is making an important point here. The conversation going into this final has focused heavily on PSG's attacking quality. But Arsenal have been the most prolific team in the competition this season. That is not a small fact. That is a statistical reality that deserves to sit at the centre of any honest assessment of this final. Arsenal are not here to defend. They are here to compete at every level of the game. Saka on Mikel Arteta. Bukayo Saka was asked specifically about what Mikel Arteta means to him and to this club. And his answer was one of the most powerful things said by any player throughout this entire celebration period. He said the faith Arteta has put in him since the very beginning and the way Arteta has transformed this club is something that not everyone sees. But inside the training ground, they see it every day. They see how hard he works. They see how much he wants it. He acknowledged that it has been tough. There were so many narrow losses. And each time, Arteta had to find ways to lift the group, to reset, to come back with new ideas. Saka called him amazing. He called him a hero of the club. And he said, Arteta really deserves this. My analysis, when your best players describe your manager as a hero, that is not a PR line. That is trust. That is belief. And that kind of relationship between a manager and his players is one of the hardest things to build in football. Arteta has clearly earned it, not through words, but through presence, consistency, and genuine belief in every single player at this club. Arteta on Pep Guardiola. Mikel Arteta, speaking to Canal Plus, was asked about Pep Guardiola. His response was short, sincere, and deeply respectful. He said the word that comes to his mind is gratitude, and he called Pep Guardiola the greatest ever. My analysis. This is a small but meaningful moment. Arteta is on the verge of potentially completing a domestic and European double in what is his first managerial role. And in this moment of personal triumph, his first instinct is gratitude toward the man who shaped him. That speaks to the character of the person leading Arsenal right now. Arteta knows where he came from. He is not forgotten. Saliba, on his Arsenal journey, William Saliba reflected on the longer arc of his time at Arsenal. He described it as a long journey with ups and downs. He spoke honestly about his loan spells, acknowledging that he was not always playing, but he framed it as part of the process, part of football. And then he said something incredibly important. He said if he could go back, he would not change a thing, because at the end of that journey, he kept working hard, kept believing, and made it work. He said since he started properly for Arsenal 4 years ago, he's been so happy. And now they have finished the season with a Premier League title, and something even bigger is coming next week. My analysis. Saliba's story is a reminder that the path to success is rarely straight. He went on loan. He was not part of the first team plan immediately. There were question marks around him for a period, and now he is one of the best defenders in European football. That kind of development does not happen by accident. It happens when a player believes in themselves and when a manager believes in a project. Arteta trusted the process with Saliba, and it paid off in every possible way. Josh Kroenke speaks to the team. This was a detail that I found very revealing. Josh Kroenke, Arsenal's co-chairman, gave a speech to the squad in the hotel in Madrid before their Champions League tie against Atletico Madrid, and the message he delivered was clear and direct. He told them to play hard. He told them to have their teammates' backs. He told them to represent the badge with pride, and he told them to have fun. My analysis. The significance of this moment is about more than the words. Kroenke chose to address the team directly at a pivotal moment in the Champions League campaign. That kind of engagement from ownership matters enormously for morale and for the feeling within a football club. Players want to feel that the people at the top of the organisation are invested in what happens on the pitch. Kroenke showing up, physically being there and delivering that kind of message tells the players that this matters to him personally. Saliba calls Paris Saint Germain scary. In a separate interview, Saliba was asked directly about PSG, and his response was honest in a way that I respect. He said they were already scary last year and they are still scary this year. Nothing has changed. He acknowledged their quality without any attempt to dismiss it. But here is what I want you to notice. Saliba did not say Arsenal cannot beat them. He said Arsenal will need to be at 100% to beat them. That is not fear. That is realism. That is a player who respects the challenge without being intimidated by it. There is a very important difference between those two things. My analysis, the mental preparation of Arsenal's players going into this final looks correct. They are not underestimating PSG, but they are also not backing away from the challenge. That balance is exactly what you want from your squad, heading into the most important game of the season. PSG's Achraf Hakimi injury. News. Now, this is significant, and I want to be clear about what we know here. According to information from L'Equipe, PSG's Achraf Hakimi is not expected to be fit to face Arsenal in the Champions League final. This is breaking news, and it is clearly a major blow for Paris Saint Germain. Hakimi is one of the best right-backs in the world. His energy, his pace, his ability to contribute in both directions make him a crucial player for PSG. If he misses the final, that is a significant gap in their defensive structure, and it potentially disrupts their attacking rhythm down the right side as well. My analysis, for Arsenal, this is important information. It does not mean the final is won. It does not change the preparation required. But the absence of Hakimi gives Arsenal's left side and whoever operates down that flank a different kind of challenge than they might have expected. This development clearly shifts a small but meaningful part of the balance heading into Budapest. Arsenal linked with Morgan Rogers. Now, let us be very clear here. This is a rumour. This is not a completed deal. This is not even an official approach. This is a transfer link. Arsenal have been connected with a potential move for Aston Villa's Morgan Rogers, despite having signed Eberechi Eze only last summer. According to journalist Ben Jacobs, Arsenal have been put off by the price tag. He said multiple clubs are in the race for Rogers, including Manchester United, Chelsea and Paris Saint Germain. But Arsenal, he said, are finding the asking price a bit steep, with Aston Villa reportedly wanting more than £80 million, and that figure potentially rising further if a bidding war develops. My analysis. Rogers is a versatile attacking player who can operate on the left wing or as a number 10. Both of those positions are areas Arsenal want to strengthen. The evidence suggests that the club sees him as a potential fit. But the hesitation around the price is a sign that Arsenal are still being smart about their spending, even with a title in their pocket and a final to play. Paying £80 million, possibly more, for a player who plays in a position you have already invested in last summer is a question that requires a clear answer. At this stage, that answer has not been found. Morgan Rogers, transfer analysis. The situation with Morgan Rogers is one that requires some careful unpacking. It is now clear that Arsenal's interest in the Aston Villa forward is genuine but complicated. The club is actively looking for a starting left winger. Rogers fits that profile. He can also play as a number 10, which gives him versatility. But the price point is where things get complicated. The reality for the club is that £80 million as a starting figure that could rise in a bidding war is considered steep by those inside the organisation. And this is not a small group of cautious voices. The people making decisions at Arsenal are looking at that number and questioning whether it represents the right value for what Rogers offers. At the same time, the argument in favour of moving for him is also strong. Rogers is Premier League proven, he is young, he is already impacting games at the highest level. He is likely to get even better. And with Arsenal now the biggest club in England, the attraction factor for a player like Rogers is real. The evidence suggests that if no bidding war develops and if Aston Villa are willing to negotiate, there is a version of this deal that makes sense for Arsenal. But if it turns into a multi-club auction, the Gunners may step back. They have shown before that they will not overpay simply to win a transfer battle. That discipline has served them well. My overall analysis on this story, Arsenal want a top attacker. Rogers is on their list. The price is a problem right now. But this summer is long. Transfer situations evolve. And if Arsenal progress and win in Budapest, their pull as a club becomes even greater. Watch this space, but do not call it done yet. It is a rumour with substance behind it, and that is exactly how you should treat it. Bukayo Saka on Declan Rice. And now we arrive at perhaps the most emotionally resonant part of everything said across this period. Bukayo Saka, Arsenal's number 7, was asked about what Declan Rice means to this club, and his answer was 4 words. He changed our world. That is it. He changed our world. The situation is that Declan Rice arrived at Arsenal in the summer of 2023. And from the moment he stepped into that changing room, into that training ground, into that starting 11, the club shifted. The evidence for this is everywhere, but none more vivid than what Saka himself just said. Rice has been the most consistent performer in Arsenal's Premier League winning season. No Arsenal outfield player played more minutes in the league than him this year, 3,099 minutes. Think about that. Think about the physical and mental endurance that requires. Think about maintaining that level of performance across every single week of a league season. And yet somehow Rice did not win the Premier League Player of the Season award. That honour went to Bruno Fernandes. That decision has been widely questioned, and it is a difficult one to justify when you look at what Rice actually contributed this season. But here is what matters even more than the individual award. What Saka said captures something beyond statistics. Rice did not just perform well, he changed the culture at Arsenal. He brought a winning mentality, a physical intensity, a relentless standard in training and in matches that elevated every single person around him. That is not something you measure in assists or goals. That is something you feel. And Saka, who has been at this club his entire senior career, felt it immediately. The evidence also points to the fact that Rice played a huge role in mentality. Arsenal have had narrow losses in previous seasons. They have been close to titles before. What changed this year? Part of the answer is Rice. His experience, his resilience, his refusal to accept defeat in any moment helped pull this team through the difficult stretches that every title-winning campaign requires. My final analysis on this story. Declan Rice is already one of the most important signings in Arsenal's recent history. He is 27 years old. He is at the peak of his powers, and he has a Champions League final to play in 6 days. If he performs in Budapest the way he has performed all season, Arsenal will be a very dangerous team for Paris Saint Germain to handle. When you step back and look at all of this together, what you see is a club that is operating at every level simultaneously. The players are celebrating but staying focused. The manager is grateful but hungry. The ownership is ambitious and financially committed. The squad is united and emotionally invested in something that goes beyond just winning a trophy. Arsenal have won the Premier League title. That happened. That is real. 22 years of waiting, and it is done. But the conversation, the language, the energy coming from every corner of this football club is pointed in one direction: Budapest, the Champions League final against Paris Saint Germain in 6 days. William Saliba says he is not full. Mikel Arteta says the next level is coming. Bukayo Saka says they stuck together and now it feels special. Nani Madueke says Arsenal are one of the best attacking and defensive teams in Europe. And Jose Mourinho, standing outside this club, watching all of this, says English football may not be ready for what is coming. The situation is extraordinary, the stakes are historic, and Arsenal are ready. This has been Melissa, Arsenal analyst. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you. Please hit the like button, share this with another Arsenal supporter, and subscribe if you have not already. I will be back with more analysis as we move through this week toward Budapest. Stay with me. We are going all the way